I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where is my help to come? Over these next several weeks, as we pay attention to the gospel readings, there is a general theme you might hear about learning to see in new ways, about learning to live in new ways. Now, just this week, I was asked in an interview, as a spiritual leader, what I most want to accomplish in ministry. I'm still not sure I totally knew how to answer the question, but here's what I said. I think I answered it because I'd been reflecting on these gospel readings. I want to help others to see God in the world around them, to see others for the children of God, to see the ways that we can be new people of God, people born again. I know this is hard work, but I also believe it's God's desire for us. It requires us to let go, and it helps if we can find a safe space, a place of acceptance. And as I was thinking about this, I was thinking about how that happens for each of us in baptism. What we say in our baptismal covenant, particularly what we say in those ancient renunciations. Some of the oldest words of liturgy for us. Do you renounce Satan and all the spiritual forces of wickedness that rebel against God? And we answer together, I do, or I renounce them. Do you renounce the evil powers of this world which corrupt and destroy the creatures of God? And we say together, I renounce them. And then we ask this last question, do you renounce all sinful desires that draw you from the love of God? And we say together, I renounce them. Right? We agree to live differently in the midst of the community gathered, with each other together. I think that's a safe place to do that. I'm not trying to be the Lenten downer here. I'm just very keen on the vulnerability needed to do the recognition and renunciation of sin. And even more aware how most of us struggle. Me too. Struggle to recognize our errors and our sin. And how necessary it is to feel loved if we're going to do that work. In Lent, we try to create space and acceptance for that to happen. I know this isn't easy because vulnerability is not a trait readily found in the Western world. However, beloved, we can hear in the gospel that we can be born again. We can hear this as an invitation to follow Jesus. I know this language sounds very un-Episcopalian to most of us, yet here we are. And I pray this is a safe space. And the kind of vulnerability the gospel suggests, because that's to be just like an infant, to be born again, like a baby. No defenses. Babies are pretty helpless, as far as I remember. It was a long time ago, but I do remember that. Babies relying on God completely, trusting in each other to make that way. It's not really required because God requires it, right? It's because God knows and Jesus knew and all many other spiritual leaders know this too. Unless we lose our defenses, our shells, our masks, our hardened hearts, we cannot experience all the good God has for us. Now, that's a Lenten message. And so when you talk about sin, I think you also have to talk about lobsters. But you guys, are you awake? I was only an hour. Come on. All right. Most of you know about lobsters. They molt, right? And they are left for a time without an outer and they're delicious. Yes, I know. And if I'd have said crabs, okay, well, they're in here further on, so just wait. Crabs get their due as well. They are left for a time without an outer covering, and they have to burrow in the sand until their new exoskeleton hardens to accommodate their bigger body. It doesn't happen once for them. It might happen 25 times in the span of their lives. I love this about lobsters, not just that they taste good. I love this about lobsters because I identify with this, right? We have skin and bones, and they stretch and grow over time, but all arthropods, see all my audience is in the other room now. All crustaceans and spiders and insects must regularly go through this process where their rigid outer bodies change because they can't accommodate their growth. Then the bigger the creature, like a giant Dungeness crab or a lobster, the longer this process is for them. It takes longer. And they need that safety of the burrowed sand to survive. We, of course, do not molt. Well, maybe a little bit, but our skeletons are on the inside, as I said, and grow with us. Yet spiritually, are we not like the crab? Not like the lobster, not like the cicada, needing desperately to shed something for something new to grow? And some place to hang out for a while as we experience life in this new, vulnerable way. Isn't this what happened to Nicodemus and to Abram? God calling them forward, totally vulnerable to a new life, without really knowing what lay in front of them. Yet willing they seem to be to leave their old ways, to leave that protection of the status quo for a while when they went to follow. Lent can be the moment to consider leaving behind what constrains us, what keeps us from growing. Lent might be the space to risk being cracked open like a lobster, exposed and a bit vulnerable for a time. Maybe even Lent as a safe space to learn as we wait. Nicodemus comes at night to see Jesus because in the dark, I believe our defenses are somewhat lowered. We are less sure of ourselves and more vulnerable, less reliant on the things we use to protect ourselves, our shells, in the daytime, right? Our money, our status, our degrees. At night, we have to rely on other senses. Not the same ones that get us through the day. Not the gifts and talents we count on. At night, we can't. Those won't protect us. So we are more vulnerable, more open to receive what God offers. So for Nicodemus, the night was safer. It was his sand. Nicodemus knew the life of following Jesus was different than the life he was leading. We know following Jesus means change. Beloved, we can't just like Jesus. Like on Facebook, like. So easy, one click, like. On Snapchat, one like. On Twitter, like. We can't do that with Jesus. We can't just admire Jesus for his good works, his miracles, his way of being with others. We can't continue to be only seekers, only searchers, never settling. This is why Lent is our time to be born again. While we can't actually turn back time, we could have a whole conversation about that today, but we can't turn it back. We can't be young again, but we can be born again. We can be born again, filled with the Holy Spirit, energized for ministry, for life, for love. Because, beloved, we are born of water and the Spirit. We are renewed, revived, reformed for forgiveness, and moved, I pray, from simply watching, simply liking, simply seeking. We are moved by this opportunity to be reborn, to be a follower. They don't have that category, really. Maybe they do on Facebook. I guess you can be on Twitter. On Twitter, you can be a follower, right? But I don't think it means the same. This decision to follow Jesus is a vulnerable act. God is with us, even in the darkness. The Holy Spirit is behind us, no matter when we come to see Jesus. No matter when we face our shortcomings, no matter when we acknowledge our own sin, no matter. Yes, it's risky, it's scary, it's uncharted territory, it's a bit exposed, this idea about being born again. And it's God's greatest desire for us. In this Lent, we have every opportunity to expand our lives, to grow into Christ, to be more of the people God truly intends for us to be.